start with the, yeah, we got that up on. I'd like to.
Nui tātou. This is for everybody, so join if you can the words there. Whakataka te hau ki te kuru.
Whakataka te hau ki te tonga.
Kia
Kia
mā
kina kina ki uta.
Kia mā taratara ki tai.
E he ake ana te yati kura. Hio, he huka, he hauhu. Ti hei mau.
Welcome. Push my button. Welcome, councillors, to our council meeting of Thursday, the 15th of December, 2022, our last meeting of the year. We have a full contingent. Everybody is either here or we've got Councillor Strange online. Sorry, Councillor Strange, we do have an issue with the cameras at the moment. So I think AS is looking into that, aren't they? So hopefully we can get that rectified soon. All right, we don't have a hugely full agenda today. We've got some council minutes. We've got 2 items for decision, those being 7.2 and 7.3. So hopefully we can make our way through this fairly quickly. That would be great. All right, we don't have any apologies. Confirmation of the agenda. So the agenda is on page 2. Do I have a mover for Councillor Downard? A second. Councillor Graff, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Disclosures of interest. I know we are still going through our process of populating our disclosure or our interest register, but are there any disclosures of interest with regard to items on the agenda today that councillors would like noted? Nope. All right. So we'll move on to item 5.1. This is on page 6. This is confirmation of the council minutes for the 24th of November. Do I have a mover that those two are correct? Councillor Hughes, second, and Councillor Marr. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. All right, we now move on to item 6.1. This is on page 29. This is great, thank you. This is the minutes for the Lake Taupō Protection Project Joint Committee on the 2nd of December. There are Section A items as well as Section B items. I'll go to you, either Councillor Kneebone or Councillor Downard. You two are representatives on that. Just before we get into it, just want to be clear on the Section B items, on the recommendation to council, because we do have a report that we're being asked to receive a report that wasn't included in our agenda.
There has been a report circulated this morning pertaining to this item. You should all have a hard copy. This will be subsequently stored with the Lake Taupō minutes, and those will be updated to reflect that report. So when those minutes go back to the committee for confirmation, that will be a minor change to take that into account. And they will also be part of the minutes of this meeting to cover it off in terms of content as well.
Great. Councillor Downard, did you want to take us through any of the specifics in this set of minutes?
It was, Madam Chair, it was pretty straightforward. The chair was elected Kylie Leonard, who was the past chair, by unanimously, and then was nominated as deputy chair, so deputy chair, and the resolutions were pretty much passed, agreed with. They did come up with a different resolution, but it was very much the same as the resolution, and that got passed. So I think it's still an important committee with the work they've gone, but it's just that with the trust now, it's the mandate is kind of run out, so we have to work through what we need to do to change that. Any questions?
Certainly.
Just add that we did have a recommendation that we start the process to wind up the trust, but they balked at that. So hence, but we did get an agreement out of them that we start the process to transfer the functions of the trust over to the district council. And we'll get an update on that at the next meeting. So the issue of what happens to the trust itself is still floating, and
Right.
not sure what's going to happen there, but.
All right. Now oh, sorry. Yes. Councillor Mahuta.
Just because it always came up when we were approving, when we we're part of that Kōpua Kanapanapa settlement process. But how are all these agencies making it better for the lake? What is their plan to collaborate? Because there's a lot of money going in, but through 3 different vehicles. So
Yeah, well, that's a problem. I mean, they want the trust to continue, but and then I expressed our concern with the number of different committees with agencies that are operating. And I mean, they for example, had a proposal that they wanted to remove us as a settlor of the trust, which you clearly can't do, but that's the sort of things they're looking at. So yeah, quite how that pans out and what they intend for a future role for the trust to be, I don't know. They share that with us. But we have asked that for the next meeting, we can have a bit of a workshop prior to, so we can get on the same page before we get to the meeting next time, yeah.
I'm not part of this committee, but am I able to ask a
Yes.
question? Well, we've just been delivered
Yes,
this
yes,
report.
yeah, yes,
Post, and we're,
Yes.
When I look at the analysis, it says that staying financial benefits, page 27, the financial benefit came with the status quo, as they would wish, has got a financial benefit of 1 out of 5. Not good for us. Whereas WIC taking it considered better, but over the page, the non-financial benefit, obviously they is 4. So it's
We're just receiving the report.
I'm happy to run Benjamin through it later. if you would
Okay.
like.
So offline. Right?
And
So-
anyone else that wants
Yeah,
to.
Oh, I just wanted to know, as in a process, if I'm sitting here and a report gets delivered after, that's not good process, is it?
Totally agree.
And
Totally
I should be
agree.
able to review it, and it shouldn't be fully, I'm not going
I
to
would
be
just-
pedantic, I'm just saying.
We'll
Yeah.
just add Benjamin.
We are just receiving it.
You're
No,
not
we're
being
not
asked to
making
make
any
any decisions on the basis.
Yeah,
of
we're not
this
making
report.
any decisions on it. But if you do want to get any further clarification, I would encourage you to talk to either Councillor Kneebone or Councillor Downard as our appointees on that joint committee. So we've got a motion there that the minutes are received, that the Section A decisions under delegated authority are noted, and that the Section B recommendations are noted as follows. So
Happy
we
to
have a
move them
mover in
both, yeah.
Councillor Kneebone, a seconder in Councillor Downard. All those in favor? Anybody opposed? Carried. Oh, sorry. Sorry. Strange. Oh, yes, noted. Thank you, Councillor Strange. Yeah, this was a bit of an oversight in the agenda that we just noted this morning and printed some out at the last minute, but we'll certainly be across those things going forward. All right, we are now on to item 7.1, the health and safety report. We've got Stuart Brown, our Executive Manager of People and Capability, to join us. And I hear we have an accompanying video. Is that because it's Christmas or? no?
Yeah, I thought you might like something to entertain you. No, it's always good to demonstrate, I think, what's going on out there. It's kind of all well and good to read a report and hear some Northern Irish tones, but it might be nice to see a little video to see what's actually going on out in the world. I'll take the report as read, and I wanted to take you through a couple of key highlights from that. You'll see obviously that work-safe death that has occurred in regards to not having scaffolding on site. We had an example of that at the council where thankfully Alex Blunt over in Pyra actually stopped work, and we had some contractors working on the roof without harnesses. He went out and was able to stop them and followed all the correct procedures around using the app to notify us and contacting property and the contractor as well. So I was really pleased, that a member of staff has felt confident enough to be able to actually go and stop someone working when they see unsafe practice. Really good. So I actually personally phoned him and said, thank you very much. And he was a little bit shocked that I had phoned him saying, I don't know why you're ringing me. This is just normal practice around here. So it gave me great comfort that's how our staff are behaving. So that was really good. If you go on to page 2, I thought some may have picked up on the increase in reporting sort of from August there through. You'll see August, November and October are all higher in reporting, and that's basically a result of back in May, there was a drive around awareness and knowledge by the health and safety team out to the organisation, and just around the importance of reporting and all of that. So that basically has shown that it's been effective, and we've now got more reporting, which is really good. So it's pleasing to see that. We'll go on to page 3 then, and that's really where the video is. So I'm hopeful that somebody can play that for me. Basically, I just wanted to show you there's a piece of work going on out at Pyra, and where they're putting in a couple of culverts, and Brian Perry Construction are doing that for us, and they have really good practices on site, and they built a dam basically to stop the water flow so they could get in and do what they're needing to do there with the physical works. The dam breached and flooded the whole area. So I just wanted to show you the video of how quickly that happened. So we'll go back to the start. So this area has all been cleared out. It took probably a week or two to excavate what needed to be done and put the dam in place. And there was all sorts of markers in place to indicate how quickly this would actually happen. So you'll see there that was within about a minute and a half, that whole area flooded. So there was no time at all passed. And I guess they have a lot of different monitoring practices in place on site there to view the water levels and what happened. And that was a significant rain event that was pretty much unprecedented. So everything that they had done around their engineering was correct. And the dam construction was fit for purpose. But just because of the unprecedented amount of rain, there was no way it could have stopped it. But it was a good news story because they had the monitoring that was going on, identified that this was going to be a problem. They stopped work, everybody was removed, and there was no issue. So it's obviously going to cost a little bit of money now to address that over a week or two to get it back to a state that it's workable again. But I just wanted you to see a physical example of what's going on out there. The other thing to draw your attention to was we had another threat of aggression. I think the last time I spoke, there was a couple of incidents just with people abusing staff members in council vehicles. This one actually relates to a couple of people running into the front of our building here. I think they came from the bus centre and they were having a bit of fisticuffs. One guy was trying to get away and thought he could seek refuge in WRC. So I think Chris went down and resolved the matter. So that was good. But it's just to note what that was. Yeah, that was it. Yep. Bit of MMA for your morning viewing, eh? Yeah. So the only other thing to cover was the last time I was here, there was a question really around the PCBU training and also the walkarounds. So I've talked to Marie, and Marie's organising that for early in the new year. So that'll come in February. And we'll get a bit of a schedule for anybody that would like to go out on site and see what's going on. We'd be more than happy to escort you guys around. So that's it for the report. If anybody has any questions.
Any questions from anyone? Councillor Hughes?
Just if I can refer back to this experience here.
Yeah.
And really, in terms of a risk mitigation strategy, is it possible that I don't know how long the project was spread over,
Yes.
but it seems to me that we've got weather forecasts which are semi-reliable. So if there's a major rain event coming, which is normally pretty well signalled ahead, were they given notice of that? He got control over that?
Yep.
And could that have avoided the extra costs if they'd been aware of the rain occurring? That have alleviated this.
Yep. So as far as the rain event goes, yes, that's constantly monitored. So they are monitoring that 3 times a day, and they've got flags and other methods basically out there on sites, and that's being monitored by the contractor and also by our own staff. Unfortunately, it wouldn't have mattered what notification we had, because the construction of the dam was done to such a level that it was suitable for what they were doing, and just the rain event couldn't be foreseen. I guess it was a really, I'm not sure if any of you guys had any damage to your property, but there was a lot of damage out around us with floods and bits and pieces. There was nothing that they could have done. The dam that they would have had to construct to address this wouldn't have been feasible or, cost effective. So yeah, unfortunately, no.
It's a really good question, and I think that the point that the confidence we probably wanted to share from this event was actually the monitoring that was taking place on site identified with what was happening, that it could be a risk, and they'd removed all the people and plant that was at danger beforehand, and it did breach eventually, but
Great. Any other questions? No. Thank you very much for that report, and thanks for the video. I think it's really useful context and also a solid reminder of how much of our work is around water and the issue that raises in terms of health and safety of our staff. So thank you for sharing that.
Thank you very much.
Stuart,
Cheers.
appreciated. Right.
Just one question.
Oh, sorry.
With the health and safety policies of our barge coming, it'd be just interesting to how that's going to work in the future. Yeah, I know, but it's going to be something that we're not used to working in that space, and all those weather events come into account when you're operating that as well. So yeah,
it will be a future major consideration, because working over water is a health and safety risk.
Definitely.
It would also have to meet the Maritime New Zealand requirements for survey and operating procedures, but absolutely.
Great. All right, so we now move on to item 7.2. Sorry? Oh, sorry, we didn't move. Do I have a mover for receiving the health and safety report? Councillor Cookson, seconded by Councillor Mahuta. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. All right, now moving on to item 7.2. This is on page 44, recognition for persons of additional responsibility. Ali, did you want to introduce this?
Tēnā koe, Madam Chair, councillors, tēnā koutou. The purpose of this item is to highlight that council is required to decide on its positions of additional responsibility, and also the remuneration that goes along with those positions, and set a base remuneration for the councillors without additional responsibilities. I'll take the report as read and just highlight a couple of things. It is the Remuneration Authority that sets the rem for all elected members across the motu. In doing so, the Remuneration Authority allocates a pool to each council, and also sets a minimum amount of annual remuneration. And so for Waikato Regional Council, the annual pool is set at 933,748. That's annual, and this must be fully allocated amongst yourselves. And the minimum annual remuneration per member is set at 58,640. Once council has confirmed itself, its positions of additional responsibility and attached remuneration and base salary, we must then forward the proposal to the Remuneration Authority, who will approve or otherwise. The next amending determination is scheduled late February, early March. And so to incorporate our proposal in that amending determination, we must submit it to the authority by late January. The staff recommendation in the report is generally based on the remuneration structure that we had in place in the previous triennium. And essentially, that is a base salary that is greater than the minimum that is set by the REM Authority, a salary plus 30% for the deputy chair position, and salary plus 15% for our committee chairs, and also recognising that this time round council has delegated some responsibility to the deputy chair of Integrated Catchment Management Committee. We're also suggesting base salary plus 5% for that particular role. Once council has, I guess, confirmed its positions and remuneration, we would ask that you confirm that in your resolution and submit the attached documents to the report to the Remuneration Authority for approval. Thank you. Any questions?
Councillor Vine?
Morena Marley. So a term or so ago, I brought up to the table about compensation for deputy chairs. Now, I see there's one added in here for ICM, and I don't have a problem with any of that. The fact is that if a deputy chair for any of the committees are called in to do some mahi, or do that mahi because the chair is unavailable, there's no compensation there. So I guess it boils down to, why are you bothering with deputy chairs if there's no recognition within the payment for them? And on occasions, the deputy chairs and the chairs, they're actually courted or with the policy people are around their committee. So, you know, I'd like to understand why that corridor wasn't progressed, considering I brought it up back in my first term about compensation for deputy chairs of some sort. That's it. But other than that, I'm all good with the rest of it.
Kia ora Kataraina, thank you for your pātai. What we've presented it as a staff recommendation is based on the structure that was in place previously. However, council does have discretion. And so if council wanted to see something different than what is being put before you as the option, then we can certainly consider that today. I will note, though, that that higher level of base salary for elected members does recognise that all councils do take on a variety of additional work, such as your committee work. Everyone has committee work and are appointed to a variety of committees and also other groups. But if you would like to see something different to what's proposed, then we'll need to work through that. We'll have to change the roles that are in the attachments, and we can do that today if council would like to see that on the screen.
Yeah, out of my chair, it's not about us stepping up at all, anything. It's about the fact that there's no recognition in any of this remuneration for deputy chairs, because you don't know when the deputy chair may get called in to do anything. Nobody knows that until the meeting happens. So that deputy chair might have to step up, but there's no compensation for them doing that. So I guess the question around all of this is, why bother with a deputy chair if all they're going to do is be a committee member and hopefully get stepped up? I'm not expecting it to happen. I just, 2 terms ago I brought that up. Obviously it hasn't filtered down in the next. Maybe next term might come into play.
Thanks. So this is looking at an increase compared to the previous triennium. in remuneration?
I don't have the figures from last time in front of me, aroha mai, but from memory, some of the positions are an increase from what was previously paid in the 2019-2022 term. Very moderate, not significant.
Councillor,
Just want a couple of things. Firstly, clarification on what one is asking. Are you asking for a, some sort of, discretionary fund, for want of a better word, where if a deputy chair was called in?
Tarina?
Were you seeking some sort of, through the chair, some sort of discretionary fund where if a deputy chair was called in to chair a committee, they could on an extra meeting fee or something?
Well, that's
what I
exactly
heard.
right, because we don't know when we, as a deputy chair, is going to be called in to do it. Anything could happen to the chair in between their house and the meeting. And then we have to step up. There's no compensation for that deputy chair of any of our committees to step in, except for ICM. In the story, that was it. I'm not fussed either way, but hey, there's never been a compensation for dep chairs.
There's a window open out there, Robin.
It's just a question.
Yeah. Look,
Sorry,
look,
Ben, can I get you to turn yours off so that Katarina can finish?
Yep, sorry.
I think it's, look, it makes logical sense. I guess one of the questions to you, Marley, would be,
No.
what would be a mechanism to do that? And I'm assuming you would need $1,000 in the next question was, we had a number of, we had a workshop early on, and I think it might have been our first workshop, where we looked at some of the feedback the previous councillor provided, Madam Chair. And there was a number of suggestions in there, and one of them was graduating the workload. Some committees meet a lot more often than others and have a much heavier workload than others. And so why are we not considering chair salary, chair percentage additions proportional to committees? I appreciate it's not a exact science, but that's one question. Second question was acknowledging that councillors' general base has been improved this year, but the chair salaries are also on percentages on top of that general improved base, aren't they? So the comment that that councillors' salaries have been improved to reflect themes, given that everyone's have gone up, and so the committee chairs' salaries have gone up. Correct? Am I correct?
Yes, the base salary has increased this time around, as has the chair people's role.
Yeah.
And that is partly influenced by the fact that we have less chair people, and so there is a more remuneration in the pool available for disbursement amongst the members.
And my last question is ICM. My understanding of the terms of reference is that the ICM, I'm pushing this question to you, Madam Chair, as well, that the ICM deputy role effectively has exactly the same responsibilities as last term's co-chair in terms of the southern catchments.
I guess the difference between last term and this term with the two positions is that it was co-chair arrangement, and so both individuals within those positions had the responsibility of chairing meetings and those leadership responsibilities, whereas under the current terms of reference for the committee, the additional responsibility taken on by the deputy doesn't include chairing meetings. So there is a difference.
That's the only difference.
Yes. Just going back to your other partai off the back of Councillor Hodges' question about remuneration for the deputy chair people, a key point to re-emphasise is that council must fully allocate the pool, and so we cannot hold back a discretionary amount for allocation in that manner. But what you could do is include your deputy chair people in the positions of remuneration and allocate a additional percentage to acknowledge those roles, if that's what council would like to see in your proposal. What we would have to do today is think on our feet, get the information about how many, who the deputy chairs are, because we have to name them, plug in an agreeable amount of additional remuneration for those positions. It would then change all the other numbers, but we can certainly go through that exercise today if council wants to see that.
Right, I've got Ben, then I've.
Sorry, I was just and wondering how many deputy chairs are there? I have no vested interest in. I have no deputy chair, no chair, so I can ask the question honestly. How many deputy chairs would there be? Because 3K each. If everyone, well, 6 committees, so 3K each, 18K. We get each give up $1,000 each and pay the deputy.
Perhaps while other questions are being asked, I might just ask Dave or Jess to please get your hands on the appointments document so we can figure out who our deputy chairs are, please, the number. So we can start thinking through whether or not we need to make some amendments to what's currently in the report.
Look, also,
Right.
Madam Chair, could I
Yes,
please have your
yes,
response on
yes.
my question regarding?
Oh, sorry. Sorry. Sorry, what was the question?
I'm being criticised for my terminology. How we terminologise the different different grades of chair according to their workload.
Yeah.
And you certainly had some views on that as Stratton Poll Chair, yeah.
Yeah, because we did have a conversation about it, Molly, but I think it was that there hadn't been sufficient discussion on how to determine the relative weight of those.
Yeah, that's right. And it kind of goes back to a comment that you made while asking the question, Stu. How do you determine which of the chairs have a more significant role than the others? We would have to, apply some thinking and come up with some justification as to, what thresholds determine whether a chairperson's role is larger than the others. Yep.
We can revisit this, This isn't a set in stone thing. I do know there is a time sensitive component of getting it through the remuneration authority, but it doesn't stop us from revisiting these things once we perhaps have a more thorough analysis or some data on. I mean, later on, a later agenda item is about the calendar that shows when meeting frequency is and things like that. So there is opportunity to revisit.
For sure. So council can certainly revise its proposed allocation on remuneration at any time during the triennium and resubmit it to the remuneration authority for approval. And so what you're suggesting is probably a sensible approach where council would adopt what's proposed today, which is a set amount for all committee chair people. We can then, I guess, analyse, review after a year to determine whether workload for particular committees is in fact larger than others, and come back with different categories to acknowledge the size of the jobs for our committee chair people.
Because it's not only just the meeting frequency, it's sometimes how many workshops are you chairing as well? That starts to add up too. So,
Yes, and other factors that council might want to take into consideration are external appointments on committees, for example, which may lend itself to additional complexity in managing relationships, those sorts of things.
just noting on the current calendar that's proposed in the next agenda item, that the discretionary committees are 4 times a year. Stratton Paul is currently 5 times a year, but doesn't necessarily take into account the workshops, because I believe there's a few of those in there already. All right, so just wanting to make sure that was done and that. So I've got, are you finished, Ben?
I don't know if am I still speaking? Right.
Do you have
So,
something else? Yeah.
well, my suggestion is that we put 3K in for those 6 people and we each drop our salaries 1,000 on the base, so that the deputy chairs are acknowledged with some remuneration. And it's not too hard to do. I think we should change it and do it. And as you suggested, move forward next year at the end of the year. The only thing is by then, you'll be asking other full chairmen to give up part of their salary to give it to Stratton Poll.
Just looking to Ollie about how we might want to model this. So while you're working through your modeling magic, should we continue with the questions? So I've got, sorry, was there anything else? Councillor Dunbar-Smith, are you good? All right, I've got Councillor Graff, just speaking order, I've got Councillor Graff, I've got Councillor Smith, Councillor Mahuta, and Councillor Clarkson.
Okay, I'm away. Look, I just need to be clear, Marley, that this is not being a recommendation to the remuneration committee suggesting we have an increase in salaries. I want to be clear on that because I'm not supporting an increase in salaries while we're in for a tough time in the next 3 years and we're going to be trimming other people's budgets, etc. So just need to be clear for that because I'm not going to support this overall motion if that's the case. Now, it might.
Sure.
It's a
Happy to
finite
answer that.
pool, though.
It is
Yes,
a finite
I understand
pool.
that. So it's the same as the previous term. We're not recommending. Yep.
It won't result in an increase of
No.
budget.
No, but because of the chair positions, et cetera, a bit less, that it's spread.
It does. And so if we plug in some additional remuneration to acknowledge deputy chair people, everyone else's remuneration will be adjusted to accommodate
Sure, and I
that.
support Ben on that too. Mm.
Councillor Smith.
Yeah, thank you. And I'd just like to acknowledge Robbie for having a constructive discussion yesterday and earlier this morning. The terms of reference for ICM are rather interesting, and in particular for the role that I've been asked to undertake, and that is the deputy role. And if you look at page 48 of the agenda, it's for that role, it says provides leadership, community and stakeholder engagement within the southern zone, Central Waikato, Waipa, West Coast, Upper Waikato and Taupō. So I am at a loss to understand what the difference is between the co-chair's role of previous councils and the current role. And I thank Robbie for his openness in suggesting that we look at putting in place what's there in front of us and in a few months' time reviewing it once we've met with the community and established what sort of committees and groupings of stakeholders we end up with. My concern is that, and whilst Marley and others have alluded to the situation where the remuneration can be reviewed at any time, my concern is that any change would see others being asked to give up money, as is the case with the deputy chair role here. And once again, we haven't had as a group an opportunity to workshop this and bring all these comments out previously. So my concern, probably, I don't fully understand what I'm being asked to do. That's different from, and I've talked to 4 of the previous 5 regional council chairs to get their understanding of a number of issues with the regional council and previous holders of the co-chair roles. And without any deviation, all have suggested to me that the co-chair role is the one that should apply. But of course, it's over to this particular council to make that determination. So Robbie and I think have got an understanding where we both share the same space in what we wish to achieve on behalf of the landowners and the stakeholders in this area. But I seem, when I look at what the chairs above the position are actually being asked to do, we all know that the integrated catchment area is a huge part of this business and what's planned ahead for engagement with the community. And then Robbie will be busy in the north with the different groups and I will be busy in the south. I would ask you, Madam Chair, unfortunately you haven't been available when I've asked for meetings. So I would like to understand what your expectation of me in this role is that is different from previous situations, previous council trienniums that goes from co-chair to appearing to have the same responsibilities. And look, I'd be happy to have the co-chair role with no extra money. It's not about money for me. It's about the manner of the role and the ability for those stakeholders to feel that they are talking to someone who doesn't have to then go to another person to get something on the agenda. And I think Robbie would be open to that, but it's just adding another step to an already busy process that I don't think is necessary. So maybe could I have some explanation of what your expectations of this role is, please?
So it's not my expectations as the chair. These are the terms of reference that have been adopted by this council. I think the fundamental difference, as Molly pointed out before, is that previously in the co-chair role, there were chairing responsibilities, and that's not what's proposed in our current terms of reference.
For me, provides leadership for community and stakeholder engagement. What do you expect? Do you expect Robbie to be meeting and chairing those engagement meetings, or what's the difference between chairing a meeting or leadership at a meeting? I'm not, in layman's terms, I think they're one and the same thing.
So we were talking about what Molly was referring to was chairing ICM, the full committee, as opposed to community engagements. We, on the I think it was the 24th, the meeting of the 24th, we adopted a motion that said we were going to go through an engagement process with our communities, our targeted rate payers, iwi, to establish how our communities want to see that engagement in ICM, recognizing that we've had some hits and misses over the years on that. And so I think that that process could lead us to a space where it may be necessary to revisit the ICM terms of reference at that stage. But we've adopted a motion to go through an engagement process. So I'd recommend that.
Yeah. In all honesty, I'm prepared to accept what Robbie's telling me. Perhaps I'll just leave it at this stage without wanting to.
Sorry, I've got Councillor Mahuta, I've got Councillor Clarkson, then I'll come to, sorry, I didn't see who was first, whether it was Councillor Hughes or Councillor Cookson. Go ahead, Councillor Mahuta.
Kia ora, through the chair. Just by virtue of the terms I've done here, just want to reinforce that ICM, when done successfully, required 2 attentive chairs. because of the ambit of the relationships, as you can appreciate, in both catchments. There's a lot of, guess, catchment interests that we didn't hear from last term as a result of not doing this well, and I don't want to not do it well again. I don't want to let them down because it'll show that we didn't hear. Yeah. So what I want is for Robbie and Noel to be fully purposed to get catchment right for us, whatever it takes, and that the scope of their proposal back is fully empowered by that. To do that, I agree with Noel. He needs to be able to stand not as the deputy, but as a full representative of the catchment mahi to the people in the area. He's got a. As for the size, Noel, you're looking at me and Kataraina as well. Yeah, that's her whole area, the area you've got, and me and Robbie will be in the same one. So, in how you split the kōrero, it's who they think they're receiving. And you know yourself, Madam Chair, that there are entities that will only talk to you. It doesn't matter which one of us show up. And I just think our catchment stakeholders deserve the same attention. To the workload, it was huge when we ran it properly, because as Deputy Chair of Council, I had to go in as the third Deputy Chair if either catchment person wasn't around because of the size of our catchment. So if I was to push it ahead, just one last point, I think our two pieces of work in this triennium is policy and strat. So you might want to look at the REM for that crowd, for the chair and deputy. As you noted, we had 86 or so meetings last triennium and we weren't doing the reforms. So I'd imagine we want to look at that if you're going to review anything in a period's time. The chair and deputy of policy and strat, just the workload. I'm not going off who I like or don't like. And same with catchment, because we got it so wrong. We lost relationship last triennium and they're going to have to do a lot of work to get it back. And it will still require you and Bruce to show up every now and then, give the extra mana of council. So I just encourage us to just get it right. If they can come up with a resolution, I'm happy that we as council entertain it in whatever period you fellas say, but I don't want it to become a big political issue that we have to resolve because we're not getting on. And at the moment, I can't say whether we're getting on or not. I think we're just shadow boxing myself, but kei te pai, kei a koutou. But I know when we get it right, it's a lot of meetings, mate. It was like half your year, eh? Gee.
Absolutely, and I just make the point that I heard you correctly, Madam Chair, 4 meetings a year for ICM. That effectively means, if I've read this correctly, that I would have the same duties as I had as co-chair Southern Catchments, that the chairperson would be getting an extra, is it six or 7 grand a year just to chair 2 meetings, and that doesn't sound equitable to me. But when we know that the lion's share of the work is not chairing 2 meetings a year in this council chamber, it's the other stuff.
It's not about me, Madam Chair, it's about the position.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to reflect on the comments I'd heard from Councillor Dunbar-Smith and Councillor Hodge and ask through you of Marley. Before I can make my decision about whether or not we would adopt the suggestions that are being made, for example, by Councillor Dunbar, would be to understand how fixed in stone the allocation actually is. I understand it's a fixed pot of money, but for example, if it turned out partway through the year that a chair became ill and a deputy chair had to fully stand in on a number of occasions, what facility is there in the process to allow that flexibility? That will help inform my position on this matter. Could you tell me that?
It's a really good question, Councillor Clarkson. If a person in a position is taken ill or taken leave for a period of time and a deputy needs to act in that role for a period, then that person takes on remuneration of that role. Very good question.
There is flexibility.
There is.
Really, that's not like a meeting by meeting situation, though. It's an extended period of time. So how is that what is extended period of time? How is that determined? Who determines?
I haven't got the information at my fingertips, and so I can't give you clarity about what, I guess, point of, or period is triggers the next position, the deputy, to take on remuneration, but we can certainly get that clarity from the Remuneration Authority for you.
Sorry, you don't have a mic. I'll come back to you for that
I'll turn
comment.
mine off.
Are you finished? Go to Councillor Hughes or Cookson, and then I'll come back to you, Councillor Smith, and then
Yeah.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just by way of explanation, picking up on Noel's point about the role that's being expected, I've got nothing to do with the Catchment Committee, but I was fortunate to be involved in a meeting that Noel was at Tikawata probably a month or so ago, and to me that was an example of the leadership which was being brought to the group. Noel, it wasn't an official meeting, but you had respect there, obviously, and I saw that as being an example, if you like, of as being described in here as leadership for the for that particular group of people. To me, it's actually quite a good description of how you behaved and talked and communicated with the people. So, don't know whether it helps, but that's how I saw it.
all right, Councillor Smith.
Yeah, just on the point that Councillor Clarkson raised, 2 or 3 trienniums ago, the Remuneration Authority put out a formula to recognise where there was absence of chairs and the like. So Marty's quite correct that there is something already in place with the Rem Authority, so it wouldn't be reinventing the wheel.
All right, Councillor Hodge.
So to be clear, I was not putting up a recommendation at all. I was asking a question because it was something that was brought up 2 terms ago. So I'm not in favour of saying, hey, let's do something for deputy chairs. Let's make myself clear about this. I wanted to understand why, after a conversation was brought to a table a term ago, was not picked up going forward. And is it ever going to be picked up? Because, who knows where I might be in the next term. But Marley, somewhere along the line, I guess what I'm asking is that these corridor that we are having a term ago gets picked up somewhere so that it doesn't keep coming back to the table. I'm just making myself clear. I was not planning to put up a recommendation that deputy chairs got paid. I was asking a question.
Just for clarity, I have put the option up on the screen off the back of the request from Councillor Dunbar Smith.
Yeah, can I just...
Sorry, I've got Councillor Nicol and then Councillor Smith. Thank you. Yeah, it's a bit of a shame we didn't workshop it because obviously, like, people hate watching politicians talk about REM. But I would propose, based on what I've heard at this point in time, that we would have a committee, a larger committee chairperson role, which would be for Stratton Pole, which is only slightly higher than the other committees, which would be EPC, RTC, Climate Action and Finance. Just to recognise that we expect there to be a slight difference based on previous experience of the work we have to make up in ICM and the Stratton Pole with all the reforms. It's just a bit obvious. Then I would definitely be an advocate for the deputy chairs being recognised as a line on there. And one particular example of that would be that, for example, Councillor Strange, who's online, is, as I learned, deputy chair of 3 committees. So not wanting to get into any more detail, but that's a lot of stuff to be across, and I would say that the best way to bring this council together is to have as much
equality as we can while still being fair and recognising that there's more work for some than for others. And I feel like that would be a way to get everything fairly well represented. But that's just me. I've had my 2 cents now. Look forward to everyone else's.
So just to, thank you, Molly, for modeling that for. We would need to suggest some ratios in order to do the,
Yeah,
work through the maths.
once they're all, I wouldn't make, I would only make slight changes to the ratios, but they'd have to all be written up properly before. So you could have more conversation and come back to that if you like, once that's even added as an option. And perhaps people hate what I just said, so we might end up having to delete lines. So let's just see. But yeah, a slight ratio change.
I have a suggestion when it's my turn.
Hang on, I just want to allow. Excel spreadsheet wizardry.
Yeah, you can only really comment on ratios once you've seen the numbers because the ratio doesn't mean much. And then you can see whether it's 1,000 here or there or 2,000.
Could I make a suggestion?
Just going to let Molly. Councillor Dunbar Smith.
Firstly, it's against my own personal interest to recommend this, but I think we should have the deputy chairs remunerated. I think it will balance the council and it acknowledges that. And I think 3K each at 6K would give us there. If we just get basic numbers. I also agree that Stratton Pole needs extra. And I think if we wait till the middle of the year, next year, and then try and extract money out of other council chairs to give it back to Stratton Pole would be a problem. I think Councillor Nichols got a suggestion there. What I'd suggest here, she's suggesting slightly more money to Stratton Pole at chair level. If we look at the position of the committee chairpersons, the additional remuneration, this is page 48, is $9,829. If we took the $829 off and multiplied it by 6, you would get $4,985. If you look at the chairperson for catchment and take the 276 off that, you get there's about $5,000 floating there you could move to Stratton Pole. And
Sorry, we need to work with the
you have to do ratios.
We
Oh,
have to
sorry.
do
Yeah.
ratios.
Okay.
And it was Stratton
So,
Pole and ICM.
So I just
Yeah.
am noting, Molly, that you've got the B's at 1.2 and you've got the A's at 1.15.
Madam Chair, can I just make a suggestion that we take a short break and rather than do this on the fly, just take some time. It's 10:30. Perhaps we could take a break to allow some,
5 minutes?
or a little bit longer than that, maybe 15 or something like that for.
Sure, absolutely. Absolutely. All right, we'll adjourn the meeting for 15 minutes until 10:45. All right.